So it does depend a little bit on the NatHERS software tool. But, I agree, Andrew. I think it's sort of, you've got to start somewhere. It's sort of like, I was quite excited when air tightness was introduced into NatHERS, because I think that in the same way, would I have liked more? Sure. But
we've got more coming.
We'll have more coming. And also that, I feel, paves the way for heat recovery, for example, to be introduced once we get the air tightness in. So you're right, absolutely. It does need to start somewhere, and hopefully it evolves and grows over time.
But aren't we only waiting for air tightness to be in the National Construction Code before we can start using that within the NatHERS software for regulatory compliance? We're simply just waiting for that. Now, there's a bit of that happened in NCC 2019 for one of the verb requirements, I think, where you could use blower door testing, but waiting for that to actually move into Part 13 itself. How long before we think something like that would be available?
I don't believe it's necessary. Again, we're talking performance-based versus prescriptive-based. So NatHERS is performance-based, so they can bring in other factors that aren't in the NCC because it becomes part of the big picture of the performance of the shell.
I like this idea, but that's not the way it was explained to me, but I certainly do like that idea.
Okay, well, this is my understanding. So, if NatHERS brings in the air tightness requirements, and there was a webinar, I think, last week with Sean Maxwell, who was talking about, the building industry has already shifted. We've improved the air tightness over the past 10 years. So where we were previously at 15 to 20 air changes an hour, we're now down to around 8 to 10 in the NatHERS. We're actually producing around 6. So if builders are already doing it, why shouldn't they get the credit for it? And I think that's where the performance base now comes into play, because we're saying we can demonstrate that the performance has improved within the NatHERS scheme. You're still going to have to test it. You're still going to have your blower door and all that sort of thing, but it'll just become part of a NatHERS assessment. If you want to do that, then these are the steps you're going to follow. If you don't want to do that, well, you're going to go the other way, and these are the steps you're going to follow. Do you use a default window or do you use a custom window? You're not required either way. You can choose.
Or either you go into the NatHERS administrator to get this input into the software verified. So we can do post-construction verification in order to determine the air changes per hour of the actual house itself. We can adjust that air changes per hour within the NatHERS software. We can reduce that accordingly. Now, again, builders are being penalised at the moment because we're assuming it's at 10, but we're building at around 6. If you build at 4, if you build at 3, you're losing out on points of a star when it's calculated through the NatHERS software.
I feel like that's a bit of an old wives' tale, the 10. It's just been a variable air change rate. It varies. It's just that it hasn't been exposed in the NatHERS software, and now it is. Now we can actually see what that value is. So for the passive house projects that I work on, it's typically where I'm doing the NatHERS component, really for regulatory compliance. But out of curiosity, I'll kick it out of non-regulatory mode and set it to the 0.6 air changes per hour and run it, and just see what sort of like difference that makes. It can be quite significant. Maybe half star. So, I think
But you're talking down to the 0.2 level.
Yeah.
0.6.
0.6.
0.6, sorry.
Yeah.
0.6 level.
Yeah. But I think
it's very house and design dependent, because you can get half a star out of 2 air changes per hour, depending on the design.
So I think what becomes interesting is if you could have user-definable levels of air tightness, and let's just say it's X, it doesn't matter what it is. What happens if the project doesn't achieve X? I think that's probably the real once it's built, and you don't probably quite, once it's sealed up, I guess, and you've tested it, it's probably a little bit difficult to what if you just didn't achieve that? So what are you going to do then? Did you just keep going until you get there, and then?
Well,
you can't get your certificate of occupancy or something until you manage to get the magic number.
That's always going to be a difficulty in one of these scenarios with that post.
Because it's so prescriptive, right? It's
But one would think you'd have testing when the envelope was sealed.
Oh, of course,
to see if you were, before you put internal linings on, just to see if you were at a certain level, and then you'd know roughly what was going to happen after that. But correct, it opens up a Pandora's box of issues. If the house is complete and it doesn't meet that regulatory compliance, you can't get a certificate of occupancy. But I'd say you'd have to have some type of leeway in those calculations to begin with.
What happens if you change the leeway and then all of a sudden it's sort of like no longer compliant? Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of a leeway you could have. Again, windows, for sake of argument, we have a plus or minus 5% when it comes to substituting something in. If you applied a similar sort of leeway on an air change and you're saying, well, I want to go for 6 ACH, give me 5%, well, what's that, 3, yes. I'm thinking of 6.12, but it's not a big difference. You're not talking one air change an hour. You're still going to be on target. If you're targeting 6, you're going to have to be pretty close to 6. If you look like you're going to be off it, well, you might have to start talking with your assessor again and saying, what are our options? Or you go back to basics and you work it through. Would be a learning curve for the builders doing it. There are going to be builders who are all over this and they know exactly what to target and how to do it. And there's other ones who are going to say, hey, for this house, we haven't done it before. We're going to learn from it and we might struggle. It might take us time to do it, but the next house we're going to be better on. The next house we're going to be better on. So it's not something that's just going to change overnight. It's going to take a little while, and we've got to see what the clauses are that they're going to put in of saying how this is going to work.
I think these are just some easy wins that could happen that we're not currently getting.
Yeah,
a little bit easier to achieve 7 stars if the air tightness is more secure.
Well, like I said, if we're already building it at 4 to 6 or something like that, and that's the equivalent of 0.2, 0.3 star maybe, climate specific, house specific, everything else, then why would we want to throw that away? But we potentially have to go through that testing phase, which is time, money, effort, getting someone in, all that sort of thing.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about under slab insulation in NCC 2022, specifically 13.2.64, 65 and 66. Now, many years ago, I'm not sure how many years ago, but it was the day you started on LinkedIn, Matthew, because you specifically responded to my LinkedIn article talking about this to tell me how wrong I was.
I had to join LinkedIn.
I know.
I think, is that my only post?
I think you've made 2 posts and they were both directly relating to my article.
You're welcome.
That's okay, buddy. Appreciate that. Now,
you should feel honoured.
You've always got to be told when you're wrong.
Hang on, didn't Andrew also create an account on LinkedIn? No?
Not for that, no.
Not for that specific purpose.
No, I'd pick up the phone and tell him it's wrong.
All right, but hang on. Was I wrong this time?
Well, were you?
No, I wasn't wrong.
Yes, you were.
No, I wasn't. There was no way I was wrong. All right, Okay, so 13.2.65, specifically where it talks about the requirement of having a minimum under slab insulation level of R.64 in climate or NCC climate zone 6 and 7, slightly different for 8, but we can talk about that separately. And also 13.6.6 for floor edge insulation, which talking about slab edge perimeter insulation, again at a minimum R.64. At the time,
Yeah, at the time.
I'd spoken to the VBA, I'd spoken to the Australian Building Codes Board, and both gave me the same answer that it was 100% required underneath the slab. Now, I believe you went through the same process, Andrew, and got similar answers.
ABCB rang me up just a few months ago in December, and they said, no, absolutely, it does not need to be applied under the slab, and that they do not consider the edge slab as wrapping around to the underside. So they were saying definitely the edge is one thing, the under is a separate, and the under is not required. Now, of course, they will never put anything in writing. And I said, could we get that in writing? And they said, no, but if anyone wants to email us, we will get back to them. Okay, it took them 2 months to get back to me. So that was ABCB's comment. I posted the exact same question to VBA and asked them, and they said, yes, absolutely, the under slab insulation is a requirement according to the wording of Spec 42. So, yeah, two different responses to me. So ABCB is different to what they said to you.
Yeah, so, but don't forget, it was years ago. Like
True.
it was,
Yep.
yeah. So when I spoke to them, however,
I think that was
I don't know what's going on, but anyway.
paper, rock, scissors there, I think.
Because you got different responses. Choose your pick.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
However, regardless of what the ABCB have said to either of us, I don't want to be the one to not put the under slab insulation in the NatHERS report and then have the VBA or the building surveyor come back on me and say, hey, did you forget this clause within the NCC because it needed under slab insulation and you didn't do it? Now the slab's poured. Now we have a big problem.
Yeah. And I will point out, ABCB is not a regulator. So first and foremost, so they can say what the intent of the building code is as they wrote it. It is Victoria, VBA or BPC who enforce it according to their standards. So from that point of view, they say something's got to be done, then it should be done. And that's the same in any jurisdiction again. So, yeah, we talked last week about the differences in the jurisdictions. And so if we look at climate zones 6 and 7, we have New South Wales has a bit of it. They have BASIC, so it overrules that Spec 42 component. We have South Australia, which in the amendment they reworded it to specifically exclude the under slab insulation for their jurisdiction in their schedule. We have WA, which has 6 and 7, and they changed theirs to say, if you see a climate zone 6, just treat it as a climate zone 5, so we don't need to worry about this. So that just leaves Victoria as the sole one which is reading it this way. So we're the only ones with this problem at the moment. So, yeah, do we or don't we? Now, look, again, yeah, I keep bringing up the NatHERS is a prescriptive-based, performance-based software. So by rights, we should be able to give and take accordingly. However, Spec 42 does say 13 point,
2.65.
2.6.5. But it also carries over with the word four-edge slab. So
But there is a comma between the two. And that is the
and
big issue.
this is
It's
what
the comma.
VBA said. Because there's a comma here and not
Yep.
a comma there, where if you refer it to this paragraph, there's no comma. So they're mutually exclusive. This one's mutually inclusive. It's confusing.
And 13.2.66 only talks about the requirements for slab edge insulation. So it would make sense that that comma is in that position where it says for slab edge
Well, I don't
insulation.
think it does because, as you said, it only refers to that. So why say, hey, refer to this for slab insulation, for slab edge insulation? It's like automatic ATM. It's you don't double up on what you're saying. It's saying for slab edge insulation. So I look at that and I say only that part is relevant.
Well, you could say that it was 13.2.65 for under slab insulation and 13.6.66 for slab edge insulation. Maybe that's the way it should have been written. I mean, we can debate the way it should have been written, but it's also written more clearly in verb. It's actually written the way I think it should have been written in verb, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all
agree with
know
that.
what it was meant to be, but again, we all know how it is. And that's the difficulty. Like the intent probably wasn't how it's been interpreted by Victoria. However, again, who wants to be the person that doesn't do it and then gets caught out? Because it will happen.
I hope not. I can't say I have put it. Certainly before I spoke to VBA BPC, there have been jobs where if we've got away without the slab insulation, we haven't put it under there, particularly when the builders don't want it and the clients don't want it because it causes problems on site. The simple fact of the matter, in Victoria, how many jobs need it?
Yeah, most. If you're not doing a waffle pod.
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah.
No, it helps a lot. So yeah, you're definitely right. But tell me what's happening with NCC 2025.
Well, the good news for Victoria is they changed the wording of it. So it's now 13.2.5. Is that the number? They've clarified with the extensions of the letters and sub-clauses that it is just the edge removing the underslab. Basically exactly the same wording as South Australia changed theirs to. So it's taken out that confusion and said it is for slab edge insulation. Consequently, I did email VBA again and said, does this change your policy? You're thinking about 2022, or are we going to have 2022 projects and 2025 projects as two different requirements? And unfortunately, in the past 2 months, there's been no response. So
Yeah, okay, but I think we can assume that it's probably going to be cleared up for 2025.
yeah,
And then barring any other significant change for class 1 in NCC 2025, I could see people moving to NCC 2025 rather than 2022. For example, if they do have a small single-story house that doesn't necessarily need underslab insulation in order to achieve 7 stars.
yeah, true. Where everyone was trying to drag it out as long as possible with the Section 10 in Victoria or whatever the requirements were in each other state. Now you might find that they're wanting to jump forward.
Correct. It's
If
going
it
to be the
means
opposite.
they don't have to do something.
Yeah, totally understand.
I personally feel like projects that have actually got concrete slabs on ground are probably likely to have rigid insulation, both under and slab edge. Projects that have waffle pod slabs are probably unlikely to require them or have them. They're different types of projects, I think, from my experience.
I
It's the work that I do.
I mean, both of us, we get pushback every single day about underslab insulation, and it's purely because
But most of the projects are waffle pod, right?
volume build projects are waffle pod, but any
Yeah.
custom build project that we do, it's almost 90%.
And that's why I made
rough
that
slab.
comment.
Yeah, I mean
Is
they're in
that
a different. They are different.
They're in
The
a
way you
different.
treat
They're
them are
quietly different.
Yeah, but again, we still get pushback. But again, it's a custom build, so it generally needs the underslab.
You're going to struggle
insulation.
to get to 7 stars
Yeah.
for a coupled rough slab.
Yep.
Well, custom build, the glass is going to be greater. The arrangements are going to be greater, and generally not optimised to the site. So, yeah, it's harder to get a job through custom job without the underslab.
Yep. Totally agree.
Now, do we want to talk about what constitutes a waffle pod? Or is that another show?
I reckon that's for another episode.
That's a great one. Actually, we've had many conversation about that as well. All three of us, actually. Do you want to talk about that or not?
No, I think we leave
not
it for.
tonight.
We'll leave that for another time, I think. So I thought what we'd do is try a brief sort of week in review of the NatHERS Assessor Network Facebook group, which as of this particular episode, I think has more than 1,600 members. So for those who are a little bit unfamiliar with the group, it was created by Michael Young from Transformed, which is a fairly well-known RTO, and it's moderated by these two random guys who try to keep the group on the straight and narrow.
Who are those two random guys?
Well, he's random. I'm not.
All right, so this week actually saw the launch of the first Rating Room podcast. Well done, guys.
Thank you.
And firstly, I'd just like to put out a big shout out, I think, to everybody who's watched it. And look, I can just hear my kid's voice in the background saying, click here to like and subscribe. Or is it this way? Oh, this way. Now we're just starting out, right? And boy, did we have were we on a learning journey. We had so many technical difficulties. The mics didn't work, right? Because the gain was too low, right? And then the main camera, I think, was only recording in 1080p instead of 4K. Hopefully everybody appreciates the seeing you and Brian in 4K now. What happened? The next attempt was the camera overheated, right? And shut down, and we didn't even realise. What was that? Hour and 50 in?
Almost.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what? We're determined. And I think the positive feedback that I've certainly received over the last week has been pretty motivating. And I've shared it with both of you. And I think, we'll need a little bit of time to iron out the kinks. But hopefully we'll be able to get to a place in the next couple of episodes where we feel confident to get some guests along to join us. All right, so I've cherry picked a few of the posts from the NatHERS Facebook group over the last week, and I'm just going to read out a few. And the first is from Calvin Grogan, and he asked, has anybody got any suggestions on what design changes will significantly improve a rating in Climate Zone 3? I've got one sitting at 6.2 stars, and pretty much maxed out on insulation and glazing. Only way I can get it across is to change from a suspended floor to a concrete slab, and it complies easily then. So I guess a little bit of a friendly reminder to everybody in the group that if you're sort of genuinely seeking sort of, some feedback and advice, then it's great to put in as much information as possible, including sort of, floor plans, elevations, whatever it needs to be able to describe the problem so that, the group can, give a sort of more detailed sort of response. Anyway, what do we think about the challenges in Climate Zone 3? I believe, Andrew, you followed up on this one.
I did. Galvin supplied a floor plan there, and I was curious, and I actually quickly rated it up. It was a very simple house, so it wasn't done accurately on my behalf. It was just to see how it stacked up and try and give him a bit of feedback. And sure enough, I found exactly the same thing. You put it in Climate Zone 3, it was very difficult. The advantage for him was that it was in Queensland. So again, as we talked about last week with the jurisdictional changes, able to apply the ceiling fans in outdoor living, and that seemed to be a potential improvement to get it up to the equivalent of 7 stars. Big question is, what would you do if it was in WA or somewhere like that, which has Climate Zone 3 without those credits? So yeah, it would have been a challenging one, but there was a few good solutions that came up, changing the floor to something like alpha floor, which would give an amount of thermal mass, so that would help. Yeah, can't remember what the other suggestions were, but people are out there trying to offer help. Sometimes the designs just need to be reworked a bit.
That's right.
What type of increase we getting from alpha floor, do you remember?
Sorry?
What points of a star were you getting out of alpha floor? Do you remember what the results were from those calculations?
I didn't try it myself on that particular project. On other ones, I've had 0.2, 0.3,
Yeah.
0.4 of a star.
That's about right.
Again, like everything, climate specific,
In a warmer
design
climate,
specific.
I'm assuming it's a warmer climate, not a colder climate, where you'd be seeing those types of increases.
No, well, I've only tried them in Melbourne, so I've had good response in Melbourne on them.
That's interesting,
Look,
Andrew. I haven't seen up to 0.4 of 0.3, 0.4. I haven't seen that significant a increase for the alpha floor. But to be fair, a lot of my testing was done in a temperate climate in New South Wales. So
yeah, like I said, it's design specific. I mean, you're not going to get that on every, and I think I probably had it on one, and I'm not even sure the builder ended up going that way. So. Like anything, we look at options and say, could you do this? Could you do that? Maybe it was complementary to the ventilation under the floor. Maybe it was complementary to the insulation as well, plus everything else in the home. So it's not a standalone solution. It's part of a jigsaw.
that's right. Anyway, I'd just like to say thanks to Calvin. I did contact him today and just asked whether he was okay, with sharing the post on the rating room, and he said that was fine. So, I mean, that's the idea, right? That we're able to, share some of our knowledge. I think we are definitely stronger working together than we are apart.
Well, questions were asked and answers were found, and the result was...
That's right. Absolutely, and I would encourage others, to. It's a great way of sort of reaching out to us, and especially if people don't mind us reading out, the odd post.
Although I would add to that, I'd love to see what the final solution was.
Yeah.
So if you ask the question, I'd love to come back and say, hey, look, we ended up doing X, Y, and Z, and that's how we got it over the line, so that the next person can come along and say...
And sort of benefits from that. That's right.
Let's give that a crack. No, that didn't work. We'll ask the question.
That's right. Yep, I'd agree with that. All right, so the next one is BDAA ABSA. They announced their International Sustainability and Energy Efficiency Summit for 2026. So this year the summit returns. Apparently it's bigger, sharper, and even more global. And features speakers from all around the world. So did either of you attend the summit last year?
Yes. Yeah, very good. I think they ended up with something like 15,000 people online for the course of it. They had a significant number from overseas universities. So it was certainly a good success for them. The quality of the speakers was great. They were international, multiple different countries represented. I walked away with a lot. So, I've signed up for this year's again, and I'm looking forward to it. This year's is a little bit different with, you've got two streams of performance versus...
Is it materials or something
materials,
like that,
something
wasn't
like
it?
that, yeah. So they're running at the same time. So I've gone the performance being the thermal side of it. But you can sign up for both and it'll be recorded, and you can watch both. And
So you jump jump streams and then you listen to the recording of the other stream. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Oh. All right.
I've only signed up for one stream, so
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
When was the last in-person one? How many years ago was that? Because I remember that specifically.
You're thinking of what, maybe the CSIRO's conference?
There was...
No, that was the one at the MCG.
MCG?
There was one in Melbourne Convention
Yeah, I think it
Centre.
was Melbourne Convention Centre. I actually thought that one was okay. Obviously, you and I had a conversation about that earlier, Andrew. But I think that one's... I think it's better in person anyway, personally, but that's my thoughts on that.
You get 15,000 people together.
Oh, I know.
yeah,
that would be good.
15,000. Yeah, I know. But
I'm not too sure
NatHERS
if that 15,000 is right, actually, but that might be. I can't remember.
a NatHERS specific conference, because that was specific, if I remember correctly.
Well, it would have been because that was run by ABSA, who was... They were only dealing with energy raters. So,
Oh,
yeah,
I
it
see.
would have been quite specific. Whereas this one's part of BDAA as well, Building Designers Association of Australia. So it's looking at the broader community. But yeah, if it's all face to face, you might not get the same speakers. You know, if you've got people coming tuning in from around the world.
It had a lot of international speakers. I'm sure that they're not all based in Australia. It's a great way of being able to tap into, talent from overseas. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody jump on it. Sounds like it's good.
All right, so the next one was from Gemma Shakespeare, and she asked, I'm after some advice on how you're accurately determining true north on projects where bearings aren't shown on the certificate of title or deposited plan and no site survey has been done. I've got a current project in WA and I'm realising that many title plans only show internal angles between boundaries relative to the adjoining boundaries with no expressed starting meridian, datum reference or clear orientation apart from a vague north arrow. So what do we think about this situation and those vague north arrows? Brian, have you seen your fair share of vague north arrows?
Yeah, look, I responded to that one in a somewhat joking fashion to begin with and just said, hey, if you want to get the project started, just Google Earth it and Google Maps and just see where you're at least you can start going. But I'd be throwing it straight back to the building designer to try and work out where north exactly is, because you can get a pretty significant difference if you're a few degrees out. A couple of months ago, and I can't actually remember what the terminology was. Now, I got it straight from CSIRO. We had a project that was at a specific orientation, and then if it moved 1 degree in either direction, there was half a star difference.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Now,
Wow.
they had a specific term for what the issue was with the file, and we'll put it up on the screen later, but it just shows that if you are 1 degree out, you can have significant problems. That was an error, but all I'm saying is that you need to be right.
I mean, most I've seen is maybe 5 degrees, 0.1 of a star.
This was a problem. This was an actual error in the
that's
file.
definitely an error. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying from day to day, 5 degrees can be sort of, maybe 0.1 of a star.
Yeah, so now if we're talking 0.1 of a star and you're struggling to get 7 stars, I mean, it can be the difference between double glazed low E windows and double glazed low E thermally broken windows. So that's a significant price difference for your client. So you really need to get this stuff right in order to get an accurate report.
And I think, look, I consider myself fairly fortunate because pretty much all of the work that I have has some sort of title re-establishment, and I've got all of the, the title boundary bearings in degrees, minutes and seconds. But I know, Andrew, you've mentioned that, on some of your projects that you don't necessarily have that information. And I think actually out of everybody, Andrew's got a pretty good solution to this. Would you like to share it with us?
Yeah, well, I tend to be a bit anal in a lot of things. So, I have in my fee structure that if you don't provide me with the title with bearings or the title information, preferably on the drawings, then I might go and order it from the titles office myself and include that as part of my fee, which they'll pay for later. That wasn't too bad when it was about $30. It's now, I think, $106 maybe.
Wow.
So it sort of went up a bit over the past few years. Look, in Victoria, it's in the Building Act that you're required to have bearings on your drawings. So because I work mostly in Victoria, we end up with all the bearings anyway. It's pretty rare not to. Most of the time, if it's not there and I ask for it, I get it. Now, that's not the same in every jurisdiction. You know, South Australia, you don't have to have them. I don't think WA, you have to have them. So clearly there is a problem. But yeah, it's how far do you go? The tech note allows for internet sources to determine north. So that then raises the question of how accurate do you actually need to be if internet sources are good enough? Or are those internet sources expecting you to get a good level of information? It doesn't spell that out. So yeah, that's my approach. I've only ever actually had to buy a title once. But the thread of it works, and you generally explain to someone, if you give me this information, I can give you the most accurate result that I can get you. I never trace a North Arrow office set of plans. I just don't ever trust them.
There you go. Andrew's top tip.
Don't trust the North Arrow.
All right. Well, actually, some bloke called Andrew Hopper asked, I know it's not NatHERS, but is anybody here successfully producing H6V2 verb assessments? I have a client wanting to consider them and wants some samples modelled. The person producing them would need to defend them when questions are asked. I don't know. Sounds like this guy should be posting on the Verb Facebook group, but there probably isn't one. But and then some other, I don't know, if we couldn't get any crazier, some other guy called Brian Haynes posted a $1,000 bounty.
Yeah, there's a bounty now.
$1,000 bounty. What do we make of this, guys?
We make an entire another episode of the rating room. That's what we make.
Look, I will point out that the request I made to start with was legitimate. I have a client I've worked with for a number of years. They want to explore alternatives. So one of the alternatives that keeps coming up is verb. I don't do it. I don't support it. But they want to explore it. So I'm legitimately looking for someone that can do a verb report successfully, proven. Brian would like to see the results of that because
I would like to see most data files.
Most verb reports don't give data; they just give an outcome. So no one can really prove whether it was done correctly. Now, it was a legitimate request. A lot of the responses weren't positive.
Except the $1,000 bounty.
But I still stand by that. If someone can do them, I would be very interested in talking to you. And Brian would be even more interested and will pay you $1,000 if you can prove the data is sound.
Yeah. So is this another episode? It sounds like we've got to dedicate an episode to this one.
Yeah, I'll get some people in who can talk about it in a lot more detail than we can. But from my understanding and research for a number of years, it's not real. I can tell you it's not real. And it's even worse in NCC 2022. And if you're doing them, shame on you. And if you're accepting them, shame on you as well. And all the liability is on the certifier or the built-in surveyor. Try getting your professional indemnity insurance updated to cover verb reports. No chance of that happening. Forget it. So this is a class action lawsuit waiting to happen at some point in time that's coming closer every day with mandatory disclosure. And I think this is going to be a huge issue for the industry at some point in time, and a reckoning is going to come.
All right then, Brian, you better organise your people to come in. and we can unpack that.
We certainly will. I think that's a multiple episode one, that.
Oh dear. Okay, and lastly, some other bloke launched the Forge program.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
guy, this is that other strange person on
Yeah.
that Facebook page.
So for people wondering what this is, look, it's really just my attempt to see if I can sort of craft some more elite subject matter experts. I feel like we've got some, and they're pretty good. But I just simply feel that there's not enough of us. I also believe that we are, like I said before, we're much stronger when we work together rather than apart. And we really need to work to sort of connect, I think, our expertise and share our insights. And I think that that's what we're actually trying to do here in the rating room as well. So it's sort of forging us in a way to push forward, right? So and drive for continuous growth. So I'm just out really seeing whether there are other people out there, and it doesn't matter whether you're really a proven presenter or whether you're just an experienced assessor, or it could be just somebody who's really driven, like a lot of, just, I really want this. I really want to, this is where I see myself, but I just don't know how to get there. Then just hit me up on the NatHERS Assessor Network Facebook group, or send a carrier pigeon. Back to you, Brian. That's it for the week in review on the NatHERS Assessor Facebook group.
Fantastic. And I think we've probably also run out of time at this stage. So let's...
or we've filled up the SD card.
All right, that wraps things up for the rating room. Thanks for joining myself, Matthew and Andrew, as we uncovered another corner of the NatHERS world. Now, again, your thoughts, questions, and insights are incredibly important to us and the podcast itself. So jump onto the NatHERS Assessor Network Facebook page, share your perspective, leave a comment below the video, and we'd love to hear what you think and obviously put forward topics that we can discuss next week. Until next time, keep rating. That's it for the rating room.
Out.
You muppet.